Hi there, my name's Delphi. My father once told me I should have never been born, and then handed my brother the CEO title I worked my whole life for. But the worst part wasn't losing the job. It was watching my name disappear from everything I helped build, and realizing the people I called family were quietly rewriting the story, without me in it. What would you do if your legacy was handed to someone who didn't earn it? Have you ever been pushed aside by your own family? What time are you listening to this? And where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. I really want to know. The building always smelled like lemon polish and recycled ambition. I'd walked through those glass doors at Stratton Timber and Iron every weekday for 16 years. Yet that morning, something in me hesitated. I nodded at the receptionist. She smiled like always. Tight, neutral, automatic. My heels clicked across the lobby, a rhythm my body knew better than my own breath. But inside me, something had shifted. It was too quiet, too rehearsed. I passed the awards wall, my name missing from all but the quarterly employee recognition photo from 5 years ago. That had been Aiden's idea, a way to boost morale. I straightened my blouse, adjusted my badge, and stepped onto the elevator. I wasn't late. I was never late. When I reached the boardroom, the door was ajar. Voices floated out, low and clipped. I stepped in, expecting routine, a nod, maybe a folder with my initials. But the chair was gone, not moved, not replaced, gone. There were no documents waiting for me, no nameplate, no coffee, just a blank space where I used to sit. I stood at the threshold, my breath caught, not from panic, but from clarity. No one looked at me, not even him. Warren Stratton, my father, the founder, sat at the head of the table, his gaze locked on Aiden, who leaned forward with the eager slouch of someone ready to receive. I didn't move. No one said a word. Then I saw it. At the head of the table, right where my mother's name had once been engraved in brass, the founder's chair, there was a new plate, Aiden Stratton, CEO. The letters glinted under the fluorescent light. My knees threatened to give, but I stood straighter instead. Warren offered a slight smile. Not triumphant, dismissive. Aiden didn't even glance at me. A memory flickered. The day my mother died. She'd held my hand and said, "Take care of what I built," quietly but fiercely. I hadn't realized how much of her I'd been carrying in my chest until that moment, watching her legacy reduced to a name swap. No one asked me to leave. They didn't need to. I walked out before the meeting even began. No one followed. Outside, I sat in my car. The air was still. My hands were steady. I opened my phone, navigated to the trust account my mother had left behind, the one only I had access to. The numbers stared back at me. They pulsed like a heartbeat. I didn't touch anything. I just looked. Years ago, my father had pulled me aside at a family dinner. "Let your brother shine tonight," he said. He hadn't realized it, but I'd stopped shining that night too. A soft knock tapped on my window. I looked up. A junior manager, he couldn't have been more than 26, offered a sheepish smile. "We missed you in there, Miss Stratton." I nodded once. I didn't say, "You forgot me." I just asked, "Did they?" The first time my keycard didn't work, I thought it was a system error. It wasn't. I pressed it against the scanner again, then again. The red light blinked back like a quiet no. The receptionist glanced at me, then immediately busied herself with a drawer that didn't need opening. I stepped back, staring at the elevator like I might will it to understand me. A kid, one of the new hires from operations, passed by with a box of toner. He paused, almost apologized with his eyes, and said, "I think your stuff might be in room 2B, down in logistics." He said it like it was a favor, like giving me directions to where they'd stored pieces of me was an act of kindness. Room 2B was cold. Not cold like air conditioning, cold like concrete. No windows, just racks of old tech equipment and uneven lighting. And in the corner, 5 boxes, unlabeled. My name wasn't on them, but they were mine. I opened the top one, files, memos, framed articles, a photo of me and my team from the first year I rebuilt the supply chain. And on top of it all, the mug. It used to say, "You're not replaceable." Now it just said, "You're not." The paint had chipped off right down the middle. The handle was cracked. I sat down on the box and held it with both hands. No one came to find me. No one noticed I hadn't been in the meeting upstairs. Or maybe they noticed and didn't care. The silence wasn't new. It was just louder now. That night, Aiden threw a gala. Something about giving back and family-driven legacy. I went. I shouldn't have, but I did. It was at the Downtown Arts Center. All marble floors and overpriced wine. I stood at the back while Aiden took the stage, mic in hand, wearing the suit Dad used to save for final negotiations. The host's voice rang out. Let's hear it for the vision of Warren Stratton and his first wife, who started this journey by his side. No name, no Claire, just a placeholder, a woman they couldn't even be bothered to name in front of a crowd. My mother had warned me, years ago, in the quiet of our backyard garden. They'll erase me if I'm not loud enough. Don't let them. And here it was. It didn't come with fire or rage, just a gentle, steady confirmation that she'd been right. I left halfway through dessert. In the car, I pulled up the company app and scrolled through the About Us page. Aiden's photo sat front and center. The mission statement talked about legacy and values. Buried in the footer, under Founding Story, I found the line. Founded by Warren Stratton and built by a committed family team. No Claire, no Delphi. I looked down at the chipped mug still sitting in my passenger seat. I took a sip of lukewarm coffee, raised the cup gently, and whispered, to the ones who built it, and were never named. Monday mornings always carried a heaviness, but this one felt like it had a pulse. I could feel it before I entered the room. The screen was already lit when I walked into the conference hall. Numbers, graphs, red lines where there should have been green. A supplier contract had collapsed, one of our newer expansions, spearheaded by Aiden. The loss? Nearly $500,000. I sat quietly, one row behind the executive row now. My new place, apparently. Warren cleared his throat. His voice came with practiced authority, no edge, no warmth. This contract was under the oversight of operations. He looked past me, to no one, to everyone. Delphi was still advising this unit at the time. We expected a flag. There wasn't one. There it was. The weight of his gaze never touched me. He didn't need it to. His words already had. Aiden didn't look up from his notepad, probably doodling something idiotic like a growth strategy. I didn't defend myself. I'd done it too many times before. I just sat there, hearing the blame settle on my shoulders again, like it belonged. They didn't remember the nights I rewrote those contracts, or the weekends I spent vetting vendor integrity while Aiden went wine tasting in Sonoma. But that was never the point. Truth didn't matter here. Perception did. A week later, I sat in a mandatory leadership training. The kind designed to remind the company we were one team. The presenter was new, polished, too polished. Slide 14, learning from oversight, accountability and practice. And there I was. A photo from a company luncheon 3 years ago, my hand raised mid-speech, framed perfectly beside a bulleted list of lessons learned from strategic missteps. No name, but I didn't need one. Everyone in that room knew who it was. No one said a word, not even Harper, who sat 2 rows behind me. When I asked the presenter afterward, he blinked like I was asking about the weather. That content was pre-approved by the executive team. Of course it was. I left before the closing team-building exercise. By the next morning, I was at Harper's apartment. She made tea. No small talk. Just silence and an open laptop between us. I saw it, she finally whispered. They're turning you into a warning sign. I didn't argue. I just nodded because she was right. It's almost impressive, I said, clicking open my email archive. I've officially become the problem I was hired to prevent. She watched as I began pulling old threads. Vendor files, budget proposals, meeting logs. Harper didn't ask what I was building. She knew. On my desktop, I created a new folder, Stratton//unedited. Then I opened the image from the training deck, the one where I looked like I belonged. Clicked Save As, named it, The Day They Lost Me.jpg. The message came before sunrise, just one line. Did you hear? Nobody got paid. I stared at the screen, half expecting it to vanish, but it didn't. The group chats were already awake, half HR, half warehouse, all panic. Screenshots of bounced pay stubs, emails to payroll bouncing back, By 7:15 a.m., Luis called. No greeting, just urgency. They're walking out, he said. Delphi, it's a mess. I don't know how long we can hold the floor. I didn't ask which floor. Didn't need to. I pulled into the Detroit plant lot an hour later, from across the street. The gates were open, but no one was working. Clusters of employees stood in silence, holding coffees like they didn't know what else to do with their hands. A few paced, a few shouted, a few lit cigarettes even though the signs clearly said smoke-free zone. Then came the cameras, news vans pulling into side alleys like scavengers. Luis spotted me sitting in my car and didn't wave. He just nodded once, the kind of nod that says, "You were right." Inside the building, no lights were on. The front desk was empty. The motion-activated lights didn't even bother flickering. I didn't get out of the car, because I wasn't here to fix it. I had already pulled the thread. I was here to see how fast it all unraveled. When you cut the engine on something this big, it doesn't stall. It crashes in slow motion. Later that afternoon, a forwarded email landed in my inbox. Subject, urgent, strategic response, financial instability meeting, 3 p.m. vertical bar location, Executive West attendees, Aidan Stratton, Warren Stratton, CFO, Legal HR Director, PR team. My name wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a single line. Keep this for context. I didn't even feel the need to add punctuation. At home, I poured myself a cup of coffee. Same chipped mug, same faded letters. You're not. This time it made me laugh. Because for the first time, the words didn't hurt. They weren't about me anymore. They were about them. By Wednesday, the panic had shifted. It wasn't loud anymore. It was efficient, strategic, corporate. The kind of chaos that gets packaged into memos labeled urgent and emails flagged red. I overheard 2 assistants whispering near the elevators. Their voices dropped when they saw me. I didn't need to ask. I already knew. Aidan had issued emergency payroll. No vote, no approval, just a signature and a transaction. Harper called me that afternoon. She didn't say hello, just, he used the contingency fund. I didn't need clarification. I knew which one, and I knew exactly what that meant. There are rules, lines written into our corporate bylaws, our ethics documents, our audits, and he crossed every one of them in less than 24 hours. When children play king, I murmured, they don't see the law, they see fear. And Aidan? He was terrified. Later that night, I received a meeting forward. Subject, exec-only vertical bar strategic recovery session time, 3 p.m. Location, Executive West. Attendees, CFO, Legal, Public Relations, Warren, Aidan, not me. I stared at the screen and laughed softly, not from humor, but from the absolute predictability of it all. Harper texted, "They think they've solved it without you." I didn't reply. I forwarded the invite to my lawyer with no context. He wouldn't need it. Then I picked up the phone and called Elias. He answered on the second ring. "They think you'll overcomplicate things," he said, voice heavy. "They're not wrong," I said, "but they have no idea what complicated even looks like yet." I opened a blank email, addressed it to the full board. I started typing, detailing violations, referencing policy codes, attaching documents. Each sentence clicked into place like a bead on a wire. But I never hit send. Instead, I saved it, named the draft folder, evidence//sent in silence. Because sometimes silence isn't absence, it's preparation. At midnight, I sat at my kitchen counter with the lights off. My screen glowed. I pulled up the approval document for the emergency payroll. There it was, Aidan Stratton, signed, stamped, confirmed, and just beneath it, listed in small print, fallback source, Legacy Trust, Stratton Family, Claire S. He had used my mother's money, my mother's grave, to cover his disaster. I whispered into the dark. They reached for her grave to pay for their mistake. And then I closed the file, but not the folder. The room applauded, but it didn't feel like applause. It felt like wind, empty, polite, practiced. Warren stood beside me with one hand resting on the back of my chair. "Let's all welcome our newly appointed honorary strategic advisor," he said, like he was offering a toast, not a sentence. They handed me a framed certificate. It looked official. Gold border, embossed logo, all the optics of achievement. But there was no authority attached, no vote, no role, just a title, shiny on the outside, hollow on the inside. My seat was no longer at the table. It was now by the window, a view of nothing. I smiled, folded the certificate twice, and slid it into my bag. I didn't tear it. That would have been too loud. Some cages come with key cards and catered lunches. This one came with applause. Later that evening, at Warren's house, the dining room smelled of cedar and old stories. The table was long, the wine was expensive, the silence longer. I waited until the plates were cleared, until Aiden leaned back like he owned the room. Then I asked softly, "When did you decide I didn't belong?" Warren didn't pause. He didn't blink. He took a sip of Cabernet, set the glass down, and said, "You should have never been born." He didn't yell it. That would have been easier. He just said it, like stating a fact, like commenting on the weather. "And your mother knew it," he added. "She just never said it out loud." The room went still. Aiden looked at the candle. Someone shifted their knife. No one defended me. I stood. My hands trembled, but I didn't let them see it. I nodded once. Then I left. At home, I didn't pour wine. I didn't cry. I didn't sit down. I opened my laptop, navigated to the trust interface, clicked through layers of permissions, disbursement settings, quarterly reviews, found the toggle. Active disbursements on a pop-up appeared. "Are you sure you want to pause all contributions?" I clicked yes. There was no dramatic music, no thunderclap, just a quiet confirmation screen. And that was it. I closed the laptop, walked to the fireplace, pulled the folded certificate from my bag and tossed it into the flames. It curled instantly, blackened at the edges, then disappeared. On Monday morning, the company inbox flooded with flagged alerts. Payroll errors, delayed transfers, missing benefits. I stared at the messages, each one a signal flare, and I whispered, I wasn't born to please him. I was born to outlast him. The sound file landed in every inbox before most people had poured their first cup of coffee. No subject line, no sender, just a file named Stratton_parental_directive.mp3. Warren's voice, crystal clear. You should have never been born. No edits, no static, just cruelty, plain, practiced, and preserved. I listened to it alone in my car. Same parking spot, same stale air. But I didn't flinch. I had already survived that moment once. My body remembered every cell that burned when he said it to my face. Now, so did the company. When I walked into the building, no one stopped me. No one greeted me either. Eyes darted back to screens, phones, coffee cups. I didn't need to be seen. Not today. In the boardroom, the air was thick. Elias sat at the far end, flipping through a folder. Aiden was sweating through his collar. Warren was already red from jawline to forehead. I walked in uninvited. I didn't ask to speak. I just placed a folder on the table. Thick, neat, no dramatics, just pages. Bank records, wire confirmations, vendor names that didn't exist in any directory, a breakdown of expenses signed off by Aiden, some routed through offshore entities, one email, forwarded from my mother's archived account, a request to Warren to double-check new supplier protocols. He'd replied, "Got it, already approved." I didn't say much. Just this. You silenced me, but the numbers won't. Nobody moved. Warren shifted, leaned forward. This is doctored. Elias didn't blink. We'll send it to audit. Full forensic pass. Aiden didn't speak. He just kept folding the corner of a napkin until it tore. One board member leaned toward another and whispered, "It's over." I didn't smile. I gathered the folder, closed it gently, and stood. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't need to. Back at my desk, what used to be mine at least, I found a message waiting. We'll reconvene tomorrow. Please be there. No apology, no acknowledgement, no ownership. I stared at the screen, then typed back, I'll bring more than just paperwork this time, and hit send. The memo was just 5 lines long. Temporary suspension Warren Stratton, Chair, effective immediately. Pending audit committee review. No apology, no signature from Warren himself. Just a seal at the bottom and a timestamp. I read it once, then again. The silence in my office wasn't empty anymore. It was clean. Elias passed by a few minutes later. No knock, no words, just a nod. It was the same nod he gave me 3 years ago in a budget meeting when I pushed back on cutting worker safety programs. Back then, He was the only one who didn't roll his eyes. Now, it meant something else. So this is what silence feels like when it's not aimed at me. By noon, they came. No appointment, no preamble. 3 workers from the Detroit plant walked straight to my door, led by Luis Ramirez. He looked tired but clear-eyed. "Sorry to just show up," he said. I pointed to the door behind me. No plaque, no title. "Doesn't matter," he said. "We know who you are." They sat. Not like petitioners, not like subordinates. We talked. Logistics, supply delays, new vendor onboarding. But mostly, trust. They wanted to know if I was staying. I didn't answer with words. I just stayed. Later that evening, I found the envelope taped to my office door. No return name, no logo, just a single line in pen. "Thank you." Inside, a folded letter on lined notebook paper. 14 signatures, 14 stories. Some I remembered, some I didn't. It ended with, "We didn't leave because of the company. We left because of them. We came back because of you." I read it twice, then placed it on the shelf beside my mother's photo. In the picture, she's wearing her work boots, dirt on her jeans, a clipboard in one hand, the other resting on my shoulder. She didn't smile in that photo, but she looked proud. As I turned off the lights, my phone buzzed. A voice message from Aiden. "I think we both lost too much. Can we talk?" I listened to the silence after his words. Then I deleted the message. The envelope was thick, weighted even, like it knew it would carry more than a title. I found it on my desk when I walked in, sealed in cream cardstock, the kind that promised elegance before you even opened it. Inside, an offer. An executive role from a prestigious firm. Big name, bigger budget. The kind of position that came with a driver, a private floor, and applause. "It's more aligned with your capabilities," the letter said. I held it in my hands for a long while, running my thumb along the crease. It was everything I used to want, and now it didn't feel like mine. I folded the offer once, then again, and tucked it into the drawer next to my mother's watch. The one she wore when she used to walk the floor in worn boots, clipboard in hand, sleeves rolled. I didn't need to chase another title. Not anymore. That same afternoon, Warren asked for lunch. We met at the old steakhouse he used to bring clients to. Dark wood, overpriced ice cubes, the kind of menu that never changed. We didn't speak much. He ordered his usual. I didn't correct him when he forgot I didn't eat red meat anymore. Halfway through the meal, he looked up and said, "You're doing well, I see that." I set down my glass. "That's new," I said. He didn't argue, just nodded. No apology, no explanation. And maybe for once, I didn't need either. Later that week, I walked the floor of the foundation office. The staff was reorganizing the shelves, prepping new materials for next quarter's outreach. Flyers, packets, brochures. One of the interns looked up and waved. I waved back. They didn't call me Miss Stratton, just Delphi. On the far shelf, framed in simple oak, was the photo I hadn't seen in years. Me and my mother, dirt on her jeans, my face sunburned, both of us laughing without looking at the camera. I straightened it a little, wiped a speck of dust from the glass. There's no legacy worth holding if it costs you your voice. It echoed in me quietly, like a song I didn't know I remembered. I stepped outside into the warm air, keys in hand, bag over my shoulder. The sky was soft, not triumphant, not cinematic, just calm. My phone buzzed, an update on company shares. I didn't open it. I didn't need metrics to tell me what I already knew. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's knowing the fight is already over. Looking back, I realized that silence was never my weakness. It was my preparation. I didn't need to yell to be heard. I didn't need a title to lead. And I didn't need their approval to be whole. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't have to stay where you're unseen just to prove you're enough. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to walk away. Not out of defeat, but out of clarity. What would you have done in my place? Stayed silent, or spoken with action? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a 1 in the comments if this story spoke to you, or let me know where you're watching from. And if you didn't like it, tell me why. Let's talk. If this story moved something in you, don't forget to subscribe for more quiet truths and bold endings.